From Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, USA, and the home of hot chicken, it's the Rick Altizer Show. Sit back, buckle up. Rick will talk with the movers, shakers, and creators who put Christ in Christian entertainment. He's a man who's clear so the world can hear. Here's Rick Altizer.
Hey, thanks for joining me today. Today, my guest is a producer and a writer of the movie The Mulligan that was out, Rick Eldgridge. Rick, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be with you. Sounds good.
Fantastic. So I enjoyed your movie. I watched it with my wife, and she wanted me to let you know that her family saw it as well. Something they did with her dad before he went to heaven. They all went and saw that together. Wow. And her dad knew Pat Boone. Pat Boone is in the movie. Yeah. Her dad used to go to church with Pat Boone at Church on the Way in Van Nuys, California.
No kidding.
So they were close friends, and so it was kind of something that they did together as a family. But it's a great movie, great film, and it's going to be coming out on August 16th, coming up soon. It's going to be available for streaming and DVD, and so pretty excited about it. Tell me a little bit about the movie, how you came about producing and writing it.
Well, it's based on a book by Wally Armstrong and Ken Blanchard. Ken has kind of always been the business guru. He wrote 1 Minute Manager, which sold a gazillion copies. And every business guy probably has that book or at least knows about it. And so he, along with Wally, who's a 20-year touring pro, PGA, got together and did a movie that is life around the game of golf. And it really is a fascinating story of this young executive who has a very successful business. Things going very well for him. On the outward appearances, he's got the looks, got the car, got everything he needs. Inside, there's a lot of stuff going on. And so he kind of makes a fool of himself at this golf tournament and gets introduced by Tom Lehman, who is in the movie as a pro who plays in this Pro-Am tournament. Gets introduced to the old pro, who's this mystical character played by Pat Boone. Of course, Paul, which is Eric Close, Eric from the Nashville series and the Magnificent Seven and some of those shows. Paul thinks it's going to help his golf game, and it really helps his life. Gives him a do-over in life eventually. He's not ready for it initially, but we find that he's got a relationship with his wife that's broken and soon to end. And for all of that and all that's going on, he has a son who hates him, and they have no relationship. So you've got the father-son kind of B story, and you've got the husband-wife C story going alongside of this mulligan that Paul's getting as our A story. So it's really a neat, intriguing, kind of walk through his life, and a lot of analogies, I think, that'll relate to all of us.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. And, it has a great golf thing going on. So, my dad is a very avid golfer, so grew up on a golf course. So, that hit a lot of buttons with me as well. And now it was something that you took from a book. And so talk to me about, now I noticed too, as far as the screenwriting credit, it was you. Now I'm assuming Randall and Roland, are those your brothers?
They're my sons.
They're your sons.
Yes.
Okay, because y'all got the last name there. Randall,
that's it.
Roland are your sons, and then Jimmy Hager as well. Yep. So you got 4 people on this screenplay and being adapted from a book. Talk to me a little bit about, because you see a lot of books written by one author and maybe two. But a lot of times you'll see movies, you'll see a bunch of names on a screenplay. Talk to me a little bit about the difference between writing a screenplay and why there's 4 people on it as opposed to with a book might have 1 or 2.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, of course, you get multiple perspectives, but in this particular case, which was really unique, Jimmy Hager's, I've worked with him for many, many years, and Jimmy's more of a technical writer. He's more of a, take all the elements. He's an incredible researcher. So especially when it comes to researching a story that I've kind of found somewhere or a book and kind of analyzing that and pulling the elements out of it, that's his gig. That's really what he does well. All of my kids, I have 6 kids actually, and we grew up on a studio lot. They all grew up at Universal Studios, and so they've, whether they like it or not, they have the entertainment disease in their veins, and so they're all involved at one level or another. But these two of my kids, most specifically, are involved in other businesses, but they still write. They're all musicians. Randall is a doctor, and Roland is a high-level corporate executive with TIAA. But they love writing, and so when we kind of read the book together, decided to do the movie, they said, "Hey, can we help you write it?" So they gave us a really unique perspective, especially in the father-son relationship. Some of the other elements, there are a lot of elements of the movie that are not in the book, which is something that happens a lot, and they really helped us with that too, kind of fleshing out what's that going to look like and how does that integrate into our overall story. But boy, what a joy to be able to work with my sons and go through that process together.
What was that like for you, working with your kids? What was that like?
Well, it's always fun. It's just a joy to do that. I've got, like I say, 6 children, and all of them in some way or another are involved in entertainment at one's perspective or another. So it's fun. It's great. My son Rodney, who actually lives in Nashville, is a film producer and works with a company there, and as a production manager. So that's kind of been his gig for several years, and he's also a musician, and decided to live in Nashville because he thought maybe they needed another singer-songwriter in Nashville.
There you go. Yeah,
absolutely.
So
there he is. And my oldest daughter has a TV show and a blog and a series here in Florida where we live, and is involved in, she kind of grew up, on the Disney lot and did a lot of stuff with them as a kid. So all my kids are very involved, and it's been kind of a fun and exciting time to have a creative home and be able to express ourselves that way. And so working with Randall and Roland was just really a lot of fun. We had a great time with it.
You're listening to the Rick Altizer Show on Bot Radio. My guest today is Rick Eldgridge. He is the one of the producers and one of the writers of the movie The Mulligan, and The Mulligan starring Pat Boone and some other Eric Close and some other great actors. And it's going to be available on demand, digital, and DVD on August 16th. Where can they get more information about the movie? Where's a site online where they can find info on that?
Well, of course, everybody, if they want to check out Facebook, there's always we've got a PR firm that's doing new posts all the time and updating just the Mulligan movie on Facebook, or themulliganmovie.com will take you to our website. And of course, we're updating that and putting new info there all the time as well. So either of those places are great.
Fantastic. So now the movie was in theaters. Was it a Fathom event?
We did a 2-day Fathom, and I guess the reason for that, for me, we our movie, The Mulligan, got a mulligan because we started, and literally we were about 2 weeks from flying actors in. We had about 75 crew members already doing final prep, and then this thing called COVID came about,
right?
And we were sitting in North Georgia, and the edict came from the governor of Georgia. I'll never forget, the news that, if there are 10 or more people in a room together, you can't do that. And so that was kind of the first thing, because nobody really knew what we were dealing with. And so I looked around, and here's this bullpen of 75 people, and I said, we're in trouble. And so long story short, we shut everything down, sent everybody home without any idea when we're going to come back, and called all the actors and said, don't come. And it was exactly a year later that we finally were able to pick it up, and under very different conditions with COVID protocols and everything else going on, we were able to get started and get it done.
When was it on screens?
We were in theaters in April, and part of the reason for doing the Fathom event, going through COVID, there was a period of time where we were just finishing the movie and theaters weren't even open yet.
Right.
And so we're thinking, well, are people going to come back, or are they going to open? And so we had originally planned for a traditional, theatrical release, but kind of me being the conservative that I am, I decided let's just do a a 2-day event, and let's drive everybody to it. And that way we at least know we'll have X number of theaters, and we can point them to a time and place. And that worked out well for us. I think, as we got closer and closer to our April date, theaters began to open and people were coming back again. And of course, it wasn't until Top Gun here in the summer that we really had, theaters kind of, trekking at a good pace again. And I don't know if we'll ever be back to where we were. But, we did the 2-day Fathom, and it was a very successful event. We did very well across the country. And so now we're excited. The problem with a 2-day movie like that, even if you pack it out, is, everybody's not going to be able to go on a particular day. So we get calls and letters and emails every day. When can we see the movie? So this April 16th, 8th is a really exciting time for us, where the movie's going to be everywhere. It'll be on Amazon Prime. Walmart has a big end cap, large order for DVD. We'll have, all the other, streaming anywhere that you can see movies. You can probably find this one. So kind of exciting for us to be able to finally get there.
That's August 16th, going to be available.
That's right.
So talk to me about, I noticed you're listed as producer as well as executive producer. Can you talk to me a little bit about what the role of a producer is and how that differs from the role of an executive producer?
Yeah, the executive producer obviously is very much more of the business and management side of things. Many times that's money. Many times that's finding money, or it's involved in the development of who's going to distribute this, who are our partners, those kinds of things. Anything kind of business, kind of the CEO of the movie, if you will, is typically the executive producer. And then the producer is a little more hands-on. In my case, I really take on projects that I want to, get my hands dirty in. I don't want to kind of just, do the business thing and never leave my office. I like to be very involved in the storytelling process. I'm a creative guy. That's what I do. So a creative producer environment is where you're literally, shepherding the story, finding the right team to build around it, so that it can be told, in the way that you envision it. And of course, collaborating together with directors and, whoever else, actors even, that can kind of speak into the story. So very different roles, but, I kind of like carrying both hats and wearing both hats in the process. And so most of the films that you see that I've done, I've probably, helped in the finance and the business side of it. And then, where my real love is getting into the meat of the story and being part of the creative process.
What do you like about working with films? What do you like about that?
Well, I love the storytelling process. It's always a challenge. I mean, you've heard this said a million times. It's a miracle any movie gets made, because there are so many moving parts, and especially in a COVID era, I think that's double duty. But I love the challenge, and I love the fact that you're building something that becomes a legacy. That's going to be there. That story's kind of imprinted in whatever form that it is, and it's going to be there for long beyond you even. And so I take special care in that to make sure that the story is told in a way that it can affect people's lives and inspire them, encourage them, and challenge them. That's all part of that process for me, and that's what really makes me tick. That's what I love doing.
How does communicating the gospel in the medium of film, how does that connect with that?
Well, being a believer, most of my life, I think it's an outlet that is very dynamic and very powerful, and not to be taken lightly. I think every story has different levels of reach and different levels of who they can approach and reach in the telling of the story. Mulligan, for example, was a phenomenal story. That's a story of redemption. It's a story of forgiveness, a story of God's grace. And so we're probably bolder in this movie than I've ever been, in any other movie I've ever made, there's a presentation of the gospel that's very natural as it comes out in Paul's character and in his connection with the old pro. He rejects it. He says, I'm not ready. I don't know if I want to do this. And then he sees all of the things through his son's eyes, through his wife's eyes, through his business that's in some ways, struggling with some things internally, and he makes that move, and we see that on screen, and that's a pretty bold thing to do. I haven't done that before, and yet I think it's very natural in the way that it comes about, and and most of the stories that I've done in the past, God's certainly been a part of the messaging. You can certainly find a lot of elements of Scripture. There's, of course, a lot of devotionals that have been made around my movies, but never before one that's this direct and this personal, where a character really has and develops a relationship with Jesus Christ through the course of his journey. And so that was pretty. It's pretty different for me, but very exciting too, and very emotional for me to be a part of that.
Yeah, it was a good presentation of the gospel. I remember when I was working with the Kendrick brothers, that was one of the first things Alex asked. He said, "So Rick, where do you see the presentation of the gospel in this?" Yeah. And so I had to think about it, and I said, "The gospel will be presented in this film from the first frame to the very last." I thought that was a good answer.
He says, "Yeah, that's the right answer."
Right answer. Good. But well, let's talk about that. The importance of what are your thoughts about that on how extreme are we going to be in telling the gospel or not telling it, and where do you draw that line, and how what are your thoughts on that?
I look at every story for its own merit and where is its audience, who is the audience, and how do we, with the highest level of integrity and the highest level of quality, tell this story so that it can affect this audience that we hope to reach. Many times that's it's not as maybe direct or in your face, but for me and for the kind of stories that I tell, every film that I do has to have that inspirational and God undergirding story built into it. I don't look at every film as an evangelical film that's going to go, win millions to Christ. But I do hope that people are challenged and inspired by that, and maybe begin to ask questions, maybe begin to look deeper at things through the process of whatever the story is. So for me, that's kind of the criteria. People ask, oh, you like doing golf movies? You've made 2 of them. Well, I've made 31 movies. 2 of them were golf movies, and they were about 20 years apart. But it's not about what kind of genre of film do you do, as much as just being true to the story that really you feel drawn to, that you believe in. I look at it very much as Jesus when he walked the earth and told parables. I mean, that's really what we do. We tell stories. We tell parables. And, Jesus would start a story, and it wasn't a Christian story. It was a story. And it was usually to answer somebody's question. And they would try to catch him maybe on something, and they'd ask him a loaded question, and he would just go off on a story, and everybody looks confused at what's going on here. And then about halfway through the story, they realize, no, wait a minute, he's talking about me here. And it begins to just drill into where that's coming from. And so, that's a challenge to me. I want to do that. I want our stories to be parables, to be stories that can make a difference and that can inspire and challenge and entertain and do it at a level that really wins the right to be heard.
Yeah, you spend so long on these films. You can spend a year, 2 years. How long from top to bottom was the Mulligan for you? How long did that take?
It was a 3-year process, but then we have to add a year because we had the start-stop.
Sure.
So it was really 4 years, and in this particular case, because of our 1-year COVID Mulligan. But it's always a 2 to 3 year process when you start developing a script, you start putting things together, and pulling all the elements together that have to happen. And I think it's important that you take that time because you want to tell something that and put something together that can live and have a legacy, and they can feel proud of, for as long as it's out there.
Yeah, you spend so much time on these things, and I'm not getting any younger. I figure, I maybe have 15 years left of actually being productive. And so what, maybe that's 7 films, maybe 6,
Yeah.
And so for me, I love entertainment. I love things that are entertaining and that, but I just don't want to spend 2 years, 3 years just to entertain somebody. I mean, I'm at a point now where it's like, if I'm not going to glorify Christ with this, if Christ isn't the focus and isn't what this is about, I'm just, what? I don't have the time,
So true.
And so
true. Yeah. I get probably a dozen scripts a week, and, it is very difficult to even look at them all, much less, I'll ask for maybe a paragraph or a synopsis that I can look at. But you're exactly right. I mean, you've got to be true to where God has you, and I think the message is so powerful in this medium that can live beyond us and go places that we'll never even be able to touch, and stuff will happen that we'll never even see. But that's the excitement of it, and that's also the responsibility that we have as stewards of that to tell that story in that way.
Yeah, and I remember Russ Taff asked me when I did his thing. I still believe, he goes, "What would it look like, us doing a thing together, documentary?" Because we talked about his alcohol addiction in that film, and because the first time he talked about it, and I said, "Well, I'll make a film. It'll have your name in it, and you'll be in it, but I won't make a film about you." The last thing I want to do is make a film about Russ Taff. What a great singer that Russ Taff is. Boy, can he sing. And here's Amy Grant. Man, that guy can sing. You've seen those docs before. I just got no interest in that.
Sure.
I said, I'll make a documentary about the powerful redemptive work of Jesus Christ, and he'll be the star. And so to me, that's just like, if I'm going to spend that much time, I just don't care to, do fluff. But what do you see? Where do you? Oh, my goodness, we're out of time. Can you believe that? I just looked down. Unbelievable. Rick.
It flies when you're having fun, huh?
Wow, that went quick. Rick, amazing. Well, my guest today is Rick Eldgridge. We're talking about the movie The Mulligan. And on August the 16th, that's a Tuesday, it's going to be available on demand, on digital, DVD. It's going to be all through the Walmarts and wherever you can see this. You can get a chance to watch it. I recommend it. I thought it was really good. My wife and I really enjoyed it. It's a great date night movie, and it's got golf in it, so guys will like it. It's got relationships in it, so the women will like it. It's a little something for everybody. And you can get information by going to themulliganmovie.com or just look up The Mulligan on Facebook. Rick, man, I really appreciate you taking time to talk with me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Well, thanks for helping us get the word out, and appreciate your work too. And we'll keep lifting each other up in these things. Sounds great.
Thanks, Rick.
All right, take care.
If there's a show you've missed, you can go to my website, rickaltizer.com, and catch up. Or you can listen to my podcast in iTunes or wherever you hear your podcasts. Just search for The Rick Altizer Show. Altizer is spelled Altizer. I want to thank you for listening. Hey, would you tell a friend about this show and share the love? Be sure to check us out again next week as we discuss how we communicate the gospel through media to our culture. Let's be clear so the world can hear. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.